Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you aboard the Airport Adventures, Flight 926-2020, from Philly to wherever you want to go. All carry-on items should be now stowed securely in an overhead bin or under the seat in front of you. All aisles and exitways should be clear. All electronic devices should be off or on airplane mode. As we leave the gate, please make sure your seatbelt is fastened. To fasten, insert the metal tip into the buckle and adjust the strap so it's low and tight across your lap. To release the belt, lift the top of the buckle. Remain seated with your seatbelt securely fastened anytime the seatbelt sign is on. Even if the sign is off, we ask that you keep the seatbelts fastened while seated in case we encounter any turbulence. Please take the time to find the closest exit to you. Keep in mind that the exits can be located behind you. Once again, we welcome you aboard the Airport Adventures, Flight 926-2020, to anywhere you want to go. And thank you for flying the Airport Adventures.
Thank you for joining back with us again. We apologize for that inconvenience. We're having a little technical difficulty. We're backing up now. So, once again, if you're out there, we do apologize for that technical difficulty. We're up and running now. Once again, as I said earlier, we're streaming from different platforms. And if you're out there, you could chime in on one of these platforms. We can go on the Facebook channel, which is Cleus Young, or you can go on our YouTube channel, which is the Airport Adventure, or you can go on our LinkedIn profile, which is actually Glory Young. And then you can also go on our what is called our Twitch page, which is the Airport Adventure. So either platform that you're on, you're able to interact with us. And if you feel free to join in if you have any comments or questions that you would like to ask as we continue this series around the context of what we would call the process of bullying. So, as I said earlier in the show before we were cut off, we started looking at it from a standpoint of where we were saying, let's do a series of topics around the context of bullying and bring people to a whole new destination, which is what the show is really for. It's called the Airport Adventure, the Runway, and it's basically looking at it and saying, just as the airport allows a space for the aircraft to be placed on a runway and then through a system allows the aircraft to take off and go to a whole new destination, that's what we're looking at and saying, hey, on this context of the Airport Adventure, the Runway, we're either going to bring a person or a topic on the runway and allow it or the person to take off and go to a whole new destination. So, as we promised, we've been doing this, and we started off 3 weeks ago where we talked about the context of bullying. And from the first context of it within our first show, we moved on to the second show, which was the context of talking about different things that weren't really talked about in the public when it comes to the context of bullying. So, just to go into that context and briefly update you or people that weren't here last week, just a brief context of how we're going to be going into this segment of this show around the solutions. But we just want to update you with some of the things that we talked about last week, which was very intricate in the context of saying, in order for us to really take this to a whole new destination, you have to understand the in-depth context of what it's really about. So when we looked at it, it was like, hey, let's start off this where we actually give people the understanding of how this process that we're dealing with in the 21st century, how did it start way, way back in what we would call the 18th century? So just briefly, we discussed that last week of how we broke it down from where it started to where it is now. So if you're just tuning in, last week we spoke about the context of how in the 1800s, the context of bully was never around something that is so negative in today's 21st century. So going back just to briefly update you, the context of a bully was what we call in today's society a boo or bae. And it's a context of where you're saying, hey, this is my friend, this is my lover. And that was the context of how bully started out. Somewhere along the line, as you can see, you can have a friend or a lover in your life, and that relationship turns sour. So now you equate that person from moving away from what is called a friend or a lover to now equating that person to someone who negatively impacted me. So that's how we started to put the pieces together and then give people a better understanding that this entity as a bully started out where it is the context of someone who is a friend or a lover, but somewhere along the line now from the 18th century all the way up to the 21st century, some type of friction happened between that lover or friend. And now it transitioned from this person being someone who is positive to now someone who is actually negative. So that's how we started off our show last week. And then we went to a key component where we were talking about it. All right, just as someone would get up and cook some type of meal, and then that meal becomes a product, when we look at it, the bullying context is a product. So similar to how you look at the food where you're cooking the food and it becomes that product, you had to put certain ingredients in it. So that's how we looked at bullying, that, hey, you have to understand the ingredients of what makes up this product of what is called bullying. So we looked at it and said, hey, let's share the ingredients. And first we looked at was bullying. Bullying is the context of something that is expressed as this aggressive behavior that's expelled on someone, meaning that whatever that person is going through from an aggressive state, we it can be transferred into someone else or something else. So the first ingredient in understand bullying is the context that it appears with something that is aggressive. The second thing that we look at as an ingredient, we look at, hey, what is this aggression gonna be attached to for it to now move from the bully to the actual victim? And this per se, we looked at it as there has to be an ingredient where we have what is called the bully. So that's the person or thing which we explained last week, that a bully is not always just a person. It can also be a thing or a place. But beyond that, we looked at it that if there is the context that